Joel, today we are talking about network like a pro.
Ooh, is that a golf show?
Well, not if it's me, it's not.
Oh, me either. I'm not a good golfer.
Anything without a windmill, I don't know. So when we bring our cleaning company owner, who may or may not be really all that comfortable or that well-versed with networking, how do you bring them from, I know how to do a handshake, I know how to not be a jerk, I'm not sure I'd call myself a pro. Where do you start?
Well, one of my clients that I spoke to recently, I used a good example from one of the authors that I read, which is Jeffrey Gitomer. And he talks about when you go into a place, ask for the salesperson. Now, this is another episode that we did on the network 3x3x3. So many people just go out, and if they're comfortable enough to do drop-in cold calls, just go along and go in, introduce yourself to the person sitting at the front desk, and you ask them, hey, I'm looking to clean your facility, because they usually will trip a little bit over, what they're there for, because they're not well versed at it and they're used to so many no's. And they usually give the person a card, and the person says, oh, well, it's cleaned in-house, or we have a service, or we just changed providers. The common canned responses, which always happen. Most people that are not versed don't then say, oh, really? Or why do you guys do it in-house? And they may not know the answer, but the thing is that so many people don't have a question lined up that's just a yes or no. You got to dig for information.
Mhm.
Everybody asks closed questions, yes or no's, and then they walk out thinking, oh, wow, I really nailed that one because I got a yes. And I ask people, like, well, what do you think they do with your card when you walk away? Oh, they give it to the person who's going to make the decision.
It goes right in the trash.
It all goes in the trash. So one of the things I love about Jeffrey Gitomer, he actually addresses that in one of his books, The Little Red Book of Sales. And he, at one point in one of his sales calls, he went out and got personalized trash cans. And he would walk in with all the company literature, because it was back in the time when you dropped off brochures and slicks and all that type of stuff. And he'd walk up to the person at the front desk, and he'd put the trash can on their desk, and he'd take all the material, he'd throw it into the trash can. And he said, this is what you're going to do with it anyway. And then he would walk out.
I bet he got great responses
He
on
got
that.
a lot of responses on that, because obviously it was a logoed can of him and the company that he worked for whatever service he was selling at that time, plus all the literature. And of course, what are they going to do? They're going to look in the can to see what he threw out. So he made an impression. That's one thing he talks about in this book. Now, I don't know too many people in today's day and age that are going to be able to do that, because everybody's worried about not looking bad in front of somebody, but that's something that he talked about. The other thing that people will at least attempt to do, ask for the salesperson. Because what's going to happen? Like he says, they're going to come up like a little lost puppy dog, because every salesperson thinks, oh, you're asking for a salesperson? I have an opportunity to sell something.
Right.
And you set up a meeting with them. Coffee meeting down at a local coffee shop, grab water, whatever your drink of choice is, and just talk. Because salespeople love to talk. Who they know, what accounts they're working on. So another example that I used with a client of mine was, if you want to do accounting offices, they're not going to have a salesperson in them, typically, because nobody's going out and selling tax services. That's usually the owner. So how do you make a break into an accounting office? You talk to payroll companies, because payroll companies are always looking for referrals for new businesses that are forming. And accountants love to be able to push off when people grow and need a payroll company.
So if I'm following you, you advise your client not to go to the accounting office and to take a separate route.
Take a separate route by talking to payroll companies and building up relationships with salespeople within the payroll companies. Hopefully someone who's been around a little while, not someone who's brand new, but somebody that's been in the business for a while that might have a book of business, and sit down and talk to them. Now, December is not going to be the best month to do that, because that's their high sales volume for changing over companies. So also understanding how different businesses operate as to when is the best time to approach somebody. So maybe that first quarter after you got their big ramp up might be when you talk to a salesperson for a payroll company. Again, you sit down, you talk to them, and, XYZ Counting on the corner of Main and State is the company. Do you know anybody on the inside? Do you know the owner? What do you know about the company? Are they in-house operation? Are they do outsourcing? Because maybe, again, by the people that are on the payroll list, they know, because of the job codes that people have, they know if it's an in-house operation.
Sure.
And if nobody's doing that work, then it's probably outsourced. And now you understand, well, how many people go through there? How many accountants work there? How many bookkeepers work there? How many people are in their building on an average day? Oh, you don't know square footage? Well, is it about this many people, this many bathrooms? You can ask questions because if you're good at what you do, you should know what an average office looks like in any given field. And then you can determine, oh, it's too small. It sounds like a 1 or a 2-person operation.
Joel, it seems to me that the advantage of approaching a payroll company, other than perhaps getting to, is the idea that as a cleaning company, you actually have something to offer them, not just the service, but the fact that you're already cleaning other businesses in the area. You might not know who those businesses are using for payroll, but you probably have a pretty good idea who has staff, who's a 2-person office, who's a 20-person office. And that's something to gratefully offer someone that you want to network with in payroll. They're looking for business too.
They're looking for business too. And maybe the caveat is that you actually have to switch over your payroll service if you're not using them. So if you're not comfortable with that, start with your own payroll company. Or if you're a solopreneur and you're not writing yourself a check yet, tell them that when you get to a certain size that you will, so that they see that they have something to gain out of this as well. Because you cannot have one-way tickets where you're only receiving and you're not giving anything in return. And that is a cardinal sin I see in so many networking circles and people, is that it's not reciprocal, and it needs to be.
But that goes back to the topic, which is networking like a pro. You're talking about a networking amateur there, and likely someone who isn't intentionally shorting their networking partners. They're just myopic.
Yes.
As you coach your customers on how to network, can I assume that this is occasionally part of the 6-month engagement?
Absolutely.
How does this conversation usually start for you?
How are you going about getting your business?
Perfect sense.
What does that look like to you? How are you doing it? Oh, I'm going to mixers and I'm handing out cards and I walk away with a bunch. Well, how much business has that netted you? Nothing.
Are you tired of that yet?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that goes back, our network 3x3x3 episode talks about some of that. And I can definitely help coach people through how to make networking more valuable to them, how to make it reciprocal so that both parties are benefiting. Because when you don't have both parties benefiting, there becomes some hard feelings. Now, maybe a salesperson for payroll, they're going to ask you some very difficult questions possibly, because they too need to know startup companies, because it gets their foot in the door, because nobody likes to change their payroll service. When a company has 100 employees, that's a little bit more delicate on what has to happen when the payroll service changes, and it can be a nightmare for that owner. So you may be able to get them into that bigger facility, but they also realize that you might not be able to get a lot like that, but boy, are they really happy that you helped them get into a facility with 100 employees. Yeah. And then they're going to train you on the key words or the key phrases that they need to hear to know that they're ripe for the change. As well as when you're talking to your customer, if you can switch some of the conversation over to, are you having problems with this? Are you having problems with that? And then you know which one of your referral partners might benefit from some of the problems that these companies have.
So listener, if you are looking to make your networking professional and productive, what you need to do is contact Joel. He understands how to get this done. He understands how to help you get it done. And he's ready now. Joel, thank you.
You're welcome.